All right, ready to go?
I'm ready.
Perfect. Okay, everybody, welcome to the What You Don't Hear podcast. This is a 15-minute Friday. So, we're going to dive in because I think there's a lot that we can talk about in this one. So, in this episode, joining me once again, I have Nate Winkelmes back on the show. Nate, thank you so much for being down to do
Yes,
these.
absolutely. Thank you, as always, for having me.
We're going to pretend that this is a Friday when we're recording them.
Great.
So, dude,
Happy Friday.
thank you so much for spending this Friday
Yeah,
with me.
I wouldn't have been anywhere else.
I for sure on this Friday when we were recording it
Yeah,
live right now, as the
100%.
people listen, I wouldn't be doing anything else.
Not a chance.
Hey, listeners, if you're listening to this on a Friday, I do honestly appreciate you spending your Friday with us. So our goal as we ramble on about this topic this week is to send you into your weekend or the following week, or to make up for maybe a lackluster week that you had, giving you some positive, actionable, thought-provoking ideas or advice, all within the confines of hopefully like 15 or so minutes.
Yes.
So before we go any further, I'm going to start the clock now. So the topic of this episode is the idea of persistence over perfection. Nate, this is one that you brought up to me when I said, hey, do you want to do 15-minute Fridays? You said, hey, let's talk about this
Yeah.
subject. So I'm going to give you the floor. It is yours. Kick this episode off.
Great. Yeah. So persistence over perfection. I mean, exactly what it sounds like, right? It's way more important to just keep trying than it is to try and get it right every time. And I think the best way to describe it, and the thing that I struggle with the most in this category, would be putting so much emphasis on getting a thing right that you don't want to try it again after if you get it wrong. And it's cool because sometimes you do get something right. And you're on top of the world. You're like, yes, I did it. I did the thing. I'm undefeatable. I'm going to get everything right from here on out. And then the next time around, slap in the face, right? You failed, or you didn't do this right, or something went wrong. You didn't work out the way you hoped. And yeah, you just kind of tell yourself this lie that you can get through something unscathed, which we both know now never happens at anything you do. Definitely easier to say than to remember in practice, but yeah, I think it's an important concept to keep in the forefront of your mind, and just try to kind of live by that strategy, I guess, for lack of a better term.
So something in there you mentioned was the idea of like you get that unstoppable feeling.
Yeah.
You're like, man, this thing worked. I got it. And then the next time, maybe it doesn't work,
Yeah.
or something different that you tried doesn't work out. So we all deal with it. Failure, right?
Yeah.
You fail. You run into that failure, run into that figurative brick wall. What would you say, or how do you handle failure? And then making sure that you push yourself and keep persisting through.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the same thing that everybody always says about this same topic is, if you don't ever stop, you can't ever fail. And yes, that's true, but that is such kind of a big picture concept that it's hard to put into practice and understand kind of at a more specific level when you're more zoomed in on a specific problem or a specific situation. So I think that the question to ask yourself is, hold on a second, did I really fail? Like, did I actually fail? How do you define failure? What do you define as a failure? I think a lot of times we put ourselves under this microscope, and we think that one little misstep is this big failure, this big thing that we did wrong. And from the outside looking in, it's not. It's like, oh, if I'm looking at you and something that you may see in yourself as this huge failure, to me is like, I mean, that's such a small, minute thing,
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's not failure. And so we attach ourselves, and we've talked about this before in other episodes, but again, it's such a common theme, and I'm kind of just realizing now how important this is in my own life too. I'm like blowing my own mind here.
Yeah.
But we attach ourselves to whatever it is that we are so passionate about or so interested in, and so then when it doesn't go the way that we think that it should have gone, now all of a sudden we're failures. Well, we didn't fail. The behavior or the action or lack of action is what failed. So understanding that puts you back in control, because now all you have to do is take a different action or take action in the first place when in the first time you didn't. You didn't have the problem framed the right way, so you didn't you didn't act accordingly.
So in those moments when you're facing failure, when you've got defeat on the mind, whatever
Yeah.
it is, what do you tell yourself to push through? Or what would you advise somebody else to, like, hey, remember these things? Like, it's just a one-time failure, one-time thing. What do you tell yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an introspective thing. I don't think there's one specific thing you can ever really tell yourself, but just get into the habit of kind of looking within and questioning all of the things that in that moment you think you know with such certainty. Because a lot of times, at least for me, what I find when I finally do shift my perspective and finally do see something for what it really is, what I realize is I was just being stubborn, for lack of a better term. I was being obstinate and not willing to admit defeat, so to speak. So it's funny that this is one of the things we're talking about, because there's a song that I'm so into right now. And the name is escaping me for some reason. But the line of the song is, just let it knock you down. Don't fight it, let it bring you back around. And when I heard that for the first time, it was so powerful, because I was like, oh, so what they're really saying is, in those moments when you feel powerless and you feel defeated, be powerless and defeated. It always comes back around. It's a circle. Everything comes back around. So just ride that wave, Don't live and die by the sword, as I've said so many times, but you can't do it. I mean, when you're down, and that's okay. Everybody gets down there and come right back up with it. When you see the thing for what it is, and for me it's music, pursuing a career in music, in those moments when it's tough and there's no gigs or there's a global pandemic going on, whatever the case may
those
be.
Tiny things.
Yeah, those tiny little things, right? In those moments, that's when it's important to realize this too shall pass. I am not the thing. I'm here with it, and I'm gonna just ride it all the way through.
Well, and that's just the idea of being persistent.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
Getting back up and continuing to go.
And so it's way more important to get 75% of it right 75% of the time than 100% of it right like 10% of the time.
Well, it's important to learn from your mistakes, right?
Yeah. So it's just volume. It's just volume and repetition.
So what would you say, like, how do you not get caught up on, and obviously I'm asking you from the perspective of, we both know we're both not perfect. We don't have all the answers, but I'm asking you more from the side of things that says, when you have failed, what have you learned that sort of best suits you, of like, how do you not get caught up on that idea of what perfect is?
Yeah, I think just remembering that it's actually not that bad. I can remember some of the very first shows I ever played in my life, kind of being so scared of getting something wrong or making a mistake or forgetting a word or whatever the case may be, right? But what I had to do was actually just go do it, and realize that nobody really noticed. Nobody really noticed.
Yeah.
You can fuck up a lot, and people still really just want you to do good.
Well, it's hard to not feel like you're under a magnifying.
Right.
It's hard to feel like you're not under the same magnifying glass that you're putting yourself.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like when I'm playing a show, I'm guilty of it, as we all are. I put myself under that microscope, and I'm like, okay, I gotta get this right. I gotta do this right. And then at the end of the show, I'm like, man, I screwed this up. But when I come see you, after you've just watched, the only thing you and most people have to say is, dude, that was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
That was great. You did such a good job.
Right.
And it becomes very apparent when you start to call yourself out for these mistakes. You're like, yeah, I messed up this one part. And it usually comes from the people close within your circle, and this is why it's always good to talk to people, whether it's your close friends or whoever. But they'll get on you, and they get on me, and they say, dude, like, you're being annoying. Like, you did great. Just nobody noticed the mistake. Nobody noticed the misstep, and you shouldn't either. Mm-hmm. And really, that's my own ego, right? Telling me how fucking important I am, and I'm not.
Yeah.
So, none of us are. So it just let go of that as much as you can in each moment. There's never there's never going to be a time where you're just like, oh yeah, I don't have to worry about this ego thing anymore. Like that's very egotistical to say, right? But it's funny, we all do that a lot. We like have these, introspective moments where we're like, I got it now.
Yeah.
I got it now.
So let's say someone's listening to this right now and they're like, okay, I get it. Like, look introspectively, think outside the box,
Yeah.
remove yourself from your situation a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
stay persistent, get back up, all that sort of stuff. What would you say to the person who is still kind of caught up on that idea of the end goal, right? Because you've always got that in your sights. And I think a lot of the times it's hard for people to identify that that end goal is there, but you can break that down into, a plan first on how to get to that overall goal.
Yeah.
And then you can break that plan down into actual steps that you can take, and you can start as small as it might take. Walk me through the idea of, really what it is to start small and why it's okay to start small. Because I think, again, somebody could be listening to this and be like,
Yeah.
well, I want to be a chef. I want to
Yeah.
be the best chef in the world, and all I can do right now is, what am I supposed to do? Like, am I just supposed to practice recipes in my house? That's not what a real chef does.
Right,
It's
right.
I think a lot of times we get really caught up on the small steps are a part of the journey that will get you to where you're trying to go, because we get caught up again on the idea of perfection
Yeah.
over just being persistent and chipping away at the goal.
Yeah. I mean, I think the best advice I could give to that is just to basically just get over yourself. And what I mean by that is, and I will be the first to admit that I'm terrible about this. This is something that I have to tell myself almost every day. But yeah, get over yourself. You're not that cool. You're not that important. And I don't mean that in like a mean, narcissistic way. I mean it in more of a stoic way. But none of us are really like that important, and nobody's watching you that closely. So I guess the question you need to ask yourself is, are you doing this because you love it, or are you doing it because you want to impress people?
Yeah.
Because usually you start caring about how flashy it is and how how good you look doing it when you're just trying to impress somebody. So whether it's trying, and this can go really deep, but whether it's trying to impress your parents years later after you're an adult, whether it's trying to impress your siblings or your significant other, or whether it's trying to impress the unreasonable, egotistical child that's in your own brain telling you that nothing's good enough, just stop trying to please that, and stop trying to reconcile that, and realize that you never will, and just start doing shit.
When that's what you're saying, when you're saying like, well, you're not that important,
Right.
is that version of you.
Yeah.
The perfection, the perfection monster that lives in all of our
Yeah.
heads of like, well, no, that's
actually just a scared child
yeah.
to me.
Yeah. No, and that totally makes sense,
Yeah.
because it's the classic, like, like in the old cartoons, like the devil and the angel sitting on your shoulders.
Right,
Like it's those,
right.
the voices in your head that are telling you, well, like, this isn't perfect. That's not how this should have, been made. That's not how you should have done that. That step was too small. That
Yeah.
to-do list doesn't make any sense. Like,
Right, and I think your analogy begs an important question. The devil on one shoulder and the angel on another. Nothing is that black and white. It's easy to see it as that in a cartoon of like, oh, you either do option A, which is the good, or option B, which is the bad.
Right,
But
right.
in reality, there's a whole damn alphabet of letters, in the middle that all can be good and bad together. It's so messy.
And those,
so messy.
and those can all be steps.
Yeah.
And all of those steps matter.
Right, so important.
Like, I feel like that is the bit, like, do you feel like the way that, not trying to go super deep here,
Yeah.
but like, do you feel like the way that modern day society is set up, and like the viral nature of everything, like, do you think that plays probably against people's like idea of, one, what perfect is, but also what like consistency and being persistent means, right? Because you see, somebody goes viral and they're a quote unquote overnight success. But technically, what you're missing is, it was the cliche like 10-year overnight success, right?
Right,
Because
sure.
they were still persistent enough to get themselves to that point that then brought that viral thing on. But I feel like that's something a lot of people battle with when you see that, like, you envision that they're like, oh my God, they achieved that goal. That must mean they're perfect and it just worked.
Yeah.
And you kind of forget that, like, no, consistency is key. Being
Right.
persistent at those things.
Well, yeah, I think that that's a great point. I think that there's two things that I would say to that. One being that, yeah, it's really, again, just about repetition. It's about doing it over and over and over and over again. And rather than kind of using everybody is talking about this right now, this idea of like, yeah, social media is actually really unhealthy because, it's causing people to like only see the highlight reel, so to speak, of others' lives. And then, they compare themselves to that. And yes, that is all true. But I also believe in progress, and I believe that social media is not going anywhere. So it's time for us to be responsible and say, okay, I need to reframe the way I look at this or just not use it. And if you don't want to use it, that's fine. But for the people that do want to use it, it's time to have the same conversation we have about seatbelts in cars.
Yeah.
If you're not going to use the car responsibly, don't use it. If you're not going to use the platform responsibly, don't use it. So rather than go any deeper into it than that, what I would invite people to do is go find your favorite social media influencer, or whether it's a musician that's sharing videos of them playing. I personally really like this guy named Mark Rebier. He does all this live looping improv. I saw him do a drive-in show here in Columbus, and it was unreal. So cool, right during the height of the pandemic. And so much respect for him for being able to just like keep on trucking, But what I would invite people to do is go find whatever this quote unquote overnight success that you love so much is, and look at the production value, look at the frequency that they're posting, think about how good or how you would rate the content, right? Like, is this excellent? Is this like pretty good? Room for improvement? Things like that. And then what you should do is find that section of content that really broke that person, right?
Yeah.
Find that section that really broke that person.
Yep.
And what you'll see is the production value and the quality of everything will get exponentially better from that point forward. So now here's what you need to do. You need to take everything from there forward and erase it and go back to the very beginning and look at the process and look how it started and see what they did to get to where they are. And then you will not care about how polished something is or how perfect something is. You'll be like, oh man, like this dude was literally just like recording on an iPhone 4 playing a piano in his bedroom
a year ago
with a desk lamp.
Yeah.
And he did that every day for a year. And now he can have the cool studio and all the nice instruments and the great camera. But like, if you get hung up on that first, you better have already done it before and have the bankroll to know how to make something take off, or you're just wasting your time and money.
Man, that's so good. All of that.
Yeah.
Yes. So much yes to all of that. I've done that. I've personally done that.
So have I.
You see the version that this thing is now that seems perfect.
This is what I need to be.
And you're like, okay, well, and like literally as you were explaining it in my head, I was like, all right, but you got to scroll back. You got to scroll down.
I know. I saw your eyes like, yes.
Yes. I was like, now you got to scroll down. Yep. You got to see where did it start.
Right, see how it started.
You can see that, because again, it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect.
No.
Even when
even now,
perfect.
These people that are super successful doing this, it's still not perfect.
Right. Exactly.
Still not.
But it's like it is important. It's so important.
It's all relative though.
For people to hear that of like, if there is something that you're comparing yourself to, or something that you're setting your goals based off of, or like, oh, I want to be like this or that brand or whatever. Do some investigating, do some research, dive in and see like what their persistent, journey was like, right? Find what their consistency was, and then maybe you can pinpoint that like quote unquote perfection point of where things switched. Of like, oh, just like you said, this is when it took off, and this is what I'm seeing now. What was it before?
Right.
Because then you're also going to see like, oh, hey, I do this or I feel this way.
Right.
I think that's so important.
It is.
People forget that. Like all it takes is like a handful of scrolls down someone's Instagram profile, and you're going to see, 2 years ago, just like you said, they were lighting things with a lamp and whatever. Like that's so important.
Yeah.
We broke the 15 minutes.
We
did it. We're past it. That's another episode. Dude, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Lots of good stuff in that one.
I know.
And the biggest thing is again, you got two people sitting on a podcast, sharing all this advice, all this opinion, all this sort of stuff. But it comes from a place not of us thinking we got it all figured out. It comes from a place of, hey, been there, done that, still going through it.
Right.
Here's
The person I was talking to the most was myself, because if you go look at my Instagram right now, you'll see that I haven't posted any music clips for the last couple months, and it's for the exact thing that I just explained, because I've just been hung up on like, man, I'm not gonna get this right.
right.
But now I should just go home and make some sound,
Dude,
because that's what it's about, man.
Sometimes it just takes sitting down on a podcast.
It does.
Giving
yeah.
someone else advice to actually talk to yourself
man.
and figure out what you got to do. So, okay, if anybody wants to find you on the internet, if they want to talk to you about what being persistent is, or they want to check out your Instagram profile to see when you pick it up again and when you start posting all this music, or they want to check any of that stuff out, have any of the conversations about anything we just talked about,
absolutely,
where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Nathan Winkelmes. Ross will drop that in the description for you. It is a little tricky to spell. And then you can follow my band as well, at The Fears Music, on all social channels, as well as Spotify, iTunes, and anywhere you stream music. So, check us out. Check me out. I would love to have a conversation with each and every one of you if you have something to say. So look me up, and I look forward to getting to know everybody.
Boom. There it is. So, guys, if you like this episode, if you found anything useful in this, or it helped you in any actionable way, let us know. I want to know. Nate wants to know. So tag the show at WYDH Pod. Share this around if you found anything valuable in it. Follow, tag me. Have the conversations with me at Who's Ross Theisen. Seriously, the whole point of putting these out, again, isn't to sit and be like, oh, we're cool on a podcast. It's to start these conversations and share whatever advice that we can. So I hope you got something valuable out of that. I feel like every time I do one of these with any guest, I feel like I learned something about myself, just like you just said.
I do too.
I always feel like I'm uncovering things about myself.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
Hope you guys found something good out of that. And otherwise, happy Friday, as long as you're listening to this on Friday. Otherwise, happy whatever day it is. Thank you guys so much for listening.